Greetings, history students, and welcome to Ms. Evans's European History, where we discover the people and ideas that transformed Europe. The 30 Years' War was a destructive conflict mainly fought in Central Europe, involving many European powers. It started as a religious conflict between Protestants and Catholics, but later turned into a political power struggle. In 1618, the Holy Roman Empire was a decentralized political system divided by religion and weakened by competition between the emperor and territorial rulers. Before we move on, let me share a few important notes for context. The Holy Roman Emperor was not a hereditary king whose eldest son automatically inherited the throne. Instead, the emperor was elected. However, neither ordinary people nor all the hundreds of princes and other rulers within the empire could vote. Only a small, established group of powerful rulers, known as the prince-electors, possessed that right. The word elector was an official title, meaning a ruler with a right to vote for the emperor. A person could be called the Elector of Saxony, much as someone today might be called the Governor of California. It was a title attached to an office and territory, not simply a description of the individual. Although the imperial crown was officially elective, members of the powerful Habsburg dynasty were elected almost continuously from 1438 through the early 18th century. Therefore, the office often appeared hereditary in practice, even though inheritance was never automatic. Continuing from the previous slide, being an elector was a massive status symbol, separate from raw territorial power. Bavaria's ruler in 1618 controlled more land and wealth than some electors, but had zero say in choosing the emperor, which is exactly why the position mattered so much politically. It's the difference between having a big army and having a formal seat at the table. This system explains why Frederick V of the Palatinate, accepting the Bohemian crown, was such a huge deal in 1618 and 19. He was already an elector through the Palatinate. If he also became King of Bohemia, which was itself an electoral vote, he'd effectively control 2 of the 7 votes and tip the religious balance of the whole electoral college toward Protestants. That's precisely why the Habsburgs treated his acceptance of the Bohemian throne as an existential threat. These growing tensions erupted on May 23rd of 1618 in an event known as the Defenestration of Prague. Protestant Bohemian nobles were angry because they believed the Catholic Habsburg government had violated their religious freedoms. Their concerns intensified after Protestant churches were closed or destroyed on lands controlled by Catholic officials. The nobles confronted royal officials at Prague Castle, accusing them of enforcing Habsburg policies and violating Bohemian religious rights. During the confrontation, they threw 2 Catholic officials and their secretary from a castle window. In addition to the defenestration of Prague we covered in the previous slide, the Bohemian estates established a provisional government, raised an army, and eventually deposed Ferdinand as King of Bohemia. In 1619, they offered the Bohemian crown to the Protestant elector Frederick V of the Palatinate. This act of rebellion ignited the Bohemian phase of the war. However, the Protestant forces were eventually defeated by Habsburg and Catholic League forces in 1620. Although the Bohemian Revolt was crushed, it inspired other Protestant regions to rise up. During the Danish phase from 1625 to 1629, King Christian IV of Denmark, a Lutheran ruler who also possessed territory within the Holy Roman Empire, entered the war in support of the Protestant cause. His forces were defeated by Catholic armies commanded by Count Tilly and Albrecht von Wallenstein. In 1629, Emperor Ferdinand II issued the Edict of Restitution, ordering the return of Catholic Church lands that Protestants had acquired since 1552. The edict also denied legal recognition to Calvinism, alarming Protestant rulers and strengthening fears of expanding Habsburg authority. During the Swedish phase, from 1630 to 1635, Protestant fortunes revived when King Gustavus Adolphus of Sweden invaded the empire. Supported financially by France, Sweden won a major victory at the Battle of Breitenfeld in 1631. However, during another Swedish victory, Gustavus Adolphus was killed, and 2 years later, in 1634, Swedish forces suffered a major defeat. Even so, Sweden continued fighting, and during this time, many German princes made peace with the emperor through the Peace of Prague. That happened in 1635. In the Franco-Swedish phase, from 1635 to 1648, although France was Catholic, Cardinal Richelieu brought it directly into the war against the Habsburgs in 1635. France feared encirclement by the Austrian and Spanish branches of the Habsburg dynasty. Its intervention demonstrated that political interests and the balance of power had become at least as important as religious divisions. France and Sweden continued fighting the Habsburgs until the Peace of Westphalia ended the war in 1648. This final phase was especially destructive. Armies devastated towns and farmland, while disease, famine, displacement, and violence caused millions of deaths. The German lands of the Holy Roman Empire suffered the greatest destruction. The Peace of Westphalia contributed to the decline of large-scale religious warfare and reinforced the idea that European states should govern their own internal affairs. However, it also preserved the political fragmentation of the Holy Roman Empire. I'll conclude today's slideshow with the major provisions of the Peace of Westphalia. German princes gained greater political autonomy. Calvinism was formally recognized alongside Catholicism and Lutheranism, and generally affirmed the authority of rulers to determine the religion of their territories. At the same time, it provided limited protections for religious minorities. The independence of the United Provinces, the Dutch Republic, was formally recognized. The southern Netherlands remained under Spanish Habsburg control and became known as the Spanish Netherlands. France gained most Habsburg rights and territories in Alsace. Sweden received territories in northern Germany, These acquisitions gave Sweden strategic influence along the Baltic and North Sea coasts. Here's a focus question. How did the 30 Years' War and the Peace of Westphalia change the political and religious balance of power in Europe?